All right, guys. I'm in shock that I'm having to do this stream tonight. First, we learned that the Earth is flat and space is fake. We never went to the moon. Then we discovered that Michelle Obama is actually a man. And more recently, we learned that the U.S. government is using HAARP to manipulate the ionosphere and cause massive hurricanes to destroy towns and cities so that BlackRock can come in and harvest their minerals. And now the U.S. government has replaced the sun with a fake sun. Just when we thought that the Satanic LGBTQ adrenochrome drinking cabal couldn't get any worse, they've stolen the sun and replaced it with a fake sun. I'll give you a minute to let that sink in. And hopefully you already know that this is parody. And I'll tell you what happened. On X the other day, there is an account called Concerned Citizen. And the guy is the absolute quintessential worst type of conspiracy theorist. Just absolute complete idiot. And it is a massive account. And he posted these pictures people have taken of the sun. Looking weird, right? With the caption suggesting that the government had somehow replaced the sun with a fake sun. So I start scrolling through the comments, and there was an endless number of people that are actually taking this seriously. Now, never mind the fact that somehow, attaching cranes to the sun and then lifting another one up and no one sees it, or the level of detachment from reality is utterly terrifying. People have been lied to and forced to live with such tremendous cognitive dissonance, trying to be patriotic when they know that their government has kindled the same energy that lights the sun on moms and dogs and babies in Hiroshima. And these people were conditioned from a very young age to believe in preposterous stuff. And by that, I mean religion. In this case, mostly Christianity. So they have been primed to believe things without any evidence and that make absolutely no sense. And so now we have this vector of fear and confusion and paranoia and a populace that has been primed to abandon critical thinking, reason, to believe in fairy tales. And it appears to me that there are probably millions of people that are seriously entertaining the possibility that the sun has been taken down and replaced with a fake sun. The last time I heard something like this, about 10 years ago, I had broken up with this girl because I helped her get clean. She used to shoot cocaine. And one day, she hadn't been acting weird. I didn't see track marks, nothing. I just had a feeling, and I had never done this before, but I looked through her purse, found a needle, threw her out. Gave her my car, actually, because I was about to buy another one. I didn't want to see her, on the streets with nothing. And so she called me, and she said, "Have you seen the moon lately?" And I was like, probably. And she's like, well, go out and look at it. So I got on my deck and I'm looking at the moon. And she's like, doesn't it look fake? I think the government replaced the moon with a fake moon. And I was just kind of shocked in considering this. And after a few minutes, it occurred to me, have you been doing meth? And she's like, yeah. And how long have you been awake? Almost 2 weeks. The point here is, 10 years ago, the only people that you would hear something like this from had been up on methamphetamine for 10 days. Now we have millions of people that are actually willing to entertain the possibility that the sun is fake. So, mass formation psychosis is a real thing. And, this stream might seem ridiculous, and it is. It is. But this is seriously, like, my intention is that this is like a red alert. And what happened is that my partner and I ate mushrooms last night, or drank them, rather. And for whatever reason, it hit me that we are actually living on a planet where it could be more than half of the people are clinically insane at this point. And it's dangerous. It's really dangerous that it has gotten to this extent where people are desperate, confused, lost. And when people don't know what to think or how to act, their tendency to follow blindly is exponentially increased. And so we are in a position where the populace, particularly in the United States, is primed for any number of atrocities, like this is really crazy. And then so let's talk about HAARP too, while we're on the subject, because this is something that's been tossed around for at least 20 years, I think. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing about this at least as early as 2000. And it's a weird one because, I was suspicious of the government's ability to not to manipulate weather. That's for sure possible to some extent. But to generate a hurricane with 200 mile per hour winds using radio waves is probably retarded. I did research because I was, on the fence about this, but I did find naval officers addressing Congress and saying that one of the objectives of HAARP is to manipulate the ionosphere. But does that mean they could actually generate, hurricanes? While it is true that electromagnetic energy has some role to play in storms like that, radio waves causing hurricanes, the plausibility of these things, not super high. And so this provoked me to check further, and I found statements from China and Russia, both saying that the United States had developed technology that could manipulate weather to that extent. So, incredibly, this is a situation where there could be plausibility, even though it's that insane. Removing the sun and switching it with another one is not. But what I'm getting at here is that the lunacy of the flat earthers and the adrenochrome people. Should we talk about the adrenochrome real quick? I'm pretty sure I've explained this before, but adrenochrome is basically a stress hormone. It's not quite right, but close enough. If you took adrenochrome, it would cause panic attack, rapid heartbeat, sweating, anxiety, hallucinations, terror, convulsions, possibly coma and death. To use adrenochrome to extend your youth, that's the opposite of what adrenochrome would do. If you took it regularly, which no one would do, you would age rapidly. Your health would deteriorate. You'd probably lose your mind. On top of that, there are micrograms in the adrenal gland of an adult, and they say they get it from babies. It would take a dump truck full of adrenal glands from babies to make a single dose. You can order adrenochrome for $20 a liter from research chemical companies in China. So adrenochrome, flat earth, what's another super stupid one? You guys get the point, right? So these people that have lost their critical thinking capacity and they go parroting this stuff. I was on Facebook the other day and I saw a lot of people on the left ridiculing people. You know, that they think the government could control the weather. Meanwhile, you can just Google it and find video of naval officers addressing Congress saying that that is the intention of this technology. And so the consequence of this is a sort of like the archons. You know, the archons were Roman magistrates that were sent to interfere in the spiritual development of the populace by sabotaging the mystery schools, right? And that became the legend of the archon spirits in the Gnostic tradition. This device, really, I think is what it is. It's the propaganda machine is doing this deliberately. With these accounts, I think probably a lot of them are fake, that are pushing these absolutely obviously ridiculous, insane conspiracy theories in order to ensure that those that come along speaking the truth are going to be ignored. In fact, and this is something you can check yourself, there was a Freedom of Information Act release, and it was discovered that the word conspiracy theory was created by the CIA with this exact intention in mind, to discredit and invalidate people that posed a threat to the state by exposing truths. And so they've created psyops like Flat Earth and, you know, on X, like I was saying, I think Concerned Citizen and a lot of these other ridiculous, they're massive accounts with the objective of discrediting the truth speakers. Let me look at the chat real quick. I have my camera set up in front of it so I can't see it very easily. Thank you, XTOS9. Okay, no questions. Here, let me check the other one as well. What is that yuckiness in my mouth? I didn't think it was very obvious this time, but it's a little bit of coca paste. I was up till 5 a.m. tripping last night, so yeah, I mean, the real bullet point of this presentation, and it always feels like preaching to the choir, talking to you guys about this, because you probably wouldn't be here if you didn't already understand this. But, it's not like it's new to me. I've known that we have some issues and that things are kind of spiraling out of control. But the real gravity of it really just hit me yesterday when I saw this massive account with all of these people that are seriously believing that somehow the sun could be swapped with a fake sun. I'll give you another example of the utter lunacy of these folks. And I actually think this guy that I was debating could have been a shill. I was invited to a flat earth debate. It was a setup. These Christians set me up because my channel used to get a lot more views back then. So I think it was part of their motivation that because I take the position, for example, that the Illuminati was actually on our side. They were trying to illuminate, and that's why they've been demonized, and also my pro Freemasonry stance, sort of. Modern Freemasonry has pretty much been hijacked, but the original intent and the importance of it as a sort of compendium of wisdom from throughout the ages that's been consolidated and protected. They saw that and they're like, this guy is a Luciferian. We should expose him. So I should have known when they forced me to agree to let them video and not me. One of you guys actually flew down here from California to watch this debate, which blew my mind. But at one point, the guy I was debating actually said, the sun is electric, you can tell by looking at it. And there was not a ripple of laughter from the audience. There was like 150 people in this like revival tent thing. No ripple of laughter, no scoffing, just, waiting for him to educate them some more. And at that point, I pretty much just checked out. I stopped listening. I didn't even debate him anymore. I just called for a glass of wine and just, And then they started having this Navy SEAL mercenary come and like walk by me and threaten me because I guess they were trying to break my focus or something. And then it got really overt, right? Like he's, really threatening to attack me. He threatened to kill a 80-year-old woman that had come to support me just because she was there. And, what I'm getting at here, I'm just trying to elucidate how completely deranged and out of touch with reality these people are and how many of them there are. What do we do about that? What is the, solution? I'm working on that to the best of my ability, but I think that awareness is crucial, and my main objective tonight, after just the way it hit me last night, how completely insane so many people have become and how volatile and dangerous that is. I just felt like I needed to jump on and just, encourage you guys to really absorb this and understand what it is that we're dealing with, what we're confronted with, the seriousness of it. And, as far as our personal responsibility, I've made mistakes in the past. I don't really think put out misinformation, but, there are times when I could have vetted my sources better and, or I didn't have a fact exactly straight. It is more important than ever that we make sure that anything that we are putting forth, any utterance that comes out of our mouth holes, that we do not profane the air with lies, even if they're not deliberate lies. We have to make sure that we are completely grounded in the truth and that we do our due diligence before accepting any reality or any possibility as reality. Last night I was searching around for music to listen to for our mushroom trip, and I happened to stumble accidentally upon a speech given by Maynard James Keenan from Tool, and it was just, very synchronistic, because I had just had this revelation of the fact that humanity, particularly people in the United States, are literally insane. They've literally gone insane. Like, actually insane. And, right after this sinks in, I find this, I thought it was a Pussifer song, and it was actually just Maynard talking. And that's what he was saying, that consciousness, the expansion of consciousness, the connectivity that we can establish between people that have this kind of intelligence and consciousness, we have to put all of our effort, all of our determination into creating networks and reinforcing the structure of illuminated people that are the foundation of something new, because at this point, it doesn't seem very plausible to me that this is just going to level out. In fact, it's not even consistent with the laws of nature to think that that's how this will play out, and it shouldn't, because order only emerges from chaos. The way that I like to explain it is that if you have a deterministic system where gears are all interlocked, there is no way for the machine to reconfigure unless those things are separated. And that chaos gives the space to move, to reconfigure. So, I would love to sugarcoat what I think. I would love to be able to say that I think we can avert the chaostrophe. But I don't believe that. What we need to do is be honest with ourselves and face reality. That inability to face the unknown is why religion, why people are obsessed with politics, why it's possible to indoctrinate people, why it's possible to control people. The only way to defeat this shadow is to stare it directly in the face and diagnose the illness that humanity is afflicted with accurately. If you get sick and it's cancer, but you decide you're going to believe it's just a cold, you're going to die, So the first step, I think, is acknowledgement and acceptance. Another kind of positive element I can add to this, well, I said another, but I mean something. I started this stream talking about how, these people believe that the government has replaced the sun with a fake sun. The reason for that is that there is all this solar activity, massive solar storms, coronal ejections, and all sorts of stuff happening. 11-year cycles, and 2025, June 2025, they estimate it's going to peak. It's been so intense that the northern lights were visible in Australia for the first time in recorded history. It is my belief that our consciousness is directly connected to the sun, more or less emanates from it. SOL, soul, put you in it, S-O-U-L, your soul. One soul divided for the sake of union. That whole trip. It blows my mind that we are experiencing all of this madness, all of this intensity, all of this disintegration and reconstruction, really. You know, I know this has sounded pretty doom and gloom. So I just want to point out that there's also all sorts of amazing, beautiful, wonderful things happening. There are people reaching levels of consciousness that used to be reserved for Buddhas and sages. There are technological advances that, if we can constrain them, they could serve us in ways that could liberate humanity from servitude, ignorance, put our power to educate ourselves in our own hands. You know, there's a tremendous amount of amazing stuff going on as well. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For every person that becomes more enlightened, someone else becomes more ignorant. This is the way the universe works. The upside of that is that entrainment tells us that all oscillating things chase the highest one. So even though there's this, you know, backdraft or something descending for everything ascending, overall, whatever is moving up is pulling the floor with it. And so what I was saying before I went off on that tangent is that it blows my mind that people don't see the correlation between the sun losing its fucking mind and humanity losing its mind. The acceleration in the development of consciousness and technology and creativity and, you know, child prodigies are becoming insanely common. You know, animals are acting more like humans. And some people have suggested that's because we have more cameras on, but I don't think so. The whole net of consciousness is moving up. And one of the things that kind of gives me hope to consider is that in the process that every mystic or person that pursues illumination, there's a period where the mind breaks down. The dark night of the soul, the crossing of the abyss, you know, the shamanic version. Terence McKenna said the shaman is a madman who has cured himself. There's always this chaos that precedes the emergence of a new order. Sorry, I just got a cramp in my back. Where was I going with that? Anyways, I don't even know where I was going. Let me see if there's any. Am I going to do an event June 2025? No, but we are doing an event in May in Manu in the rainforest. We still have a couple spots open, and also November. Buenas noches. November, we're doing a morel mushroom and other medicinal and edible mushroom foraging mixed with our normal plant medicine regimen. So if you're interested in that, November 15th through December 15th, please also hit the like button, share, subscribe. Humans are behaving more like animals. True. But as I was saying, the really illuminated conversations, the level they get to on a common, you know, amongst common people now is unparalleled, at least in my lifetime. I've never seen anything like it. You know, it's unfortunate that there are so many snares and traps In fact, here's something relevant. People in the early stages of awakening. Oh, I just remembered the thing I've... All right, let me see if I can retain that and finish this thought. People in the early stages of awakening, breaking out of the matrix mind, right? They see all these alternative narratives and they get swept up in these movements, if you want to call it that, and they think that because they have realized that the mainstream is deceptive and that, nothing is what they thought it was, that they've liberated their minds. And then they fall into something like flat earth. And here's the thing, and this is something all of us probably could do to remind ourselves of regularly and consistently. Breaking free of one flavor of mind-forged manacles of culture, cultural indoctrination, you don't just automatically now have good critical thinking skills. So what I see is a lot of people make the break, the preliminary break, but then there's still a person with no critical thinking skills, no ability to reason. They don't teach these things in the public school education in the United States for a reason. So just kind of a side note there, that this is something we all have to take great responsibility for. Just because you have escaped from one box, what that should catalyze in a person is a recognition that they need to develop better critical thinking skills and educate themselves and develop a better skill set for, collecting information and extracting the wheat from the chaff. But that's not generally what people do. They think they've done it when they recognize the first layer. That's not enough. It's not enough. Sorry, I'm trying to see past my camera. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I have more to say about this. Bit foggy from staying up till 5 a.m. last night. Another aspect of this, one of the big consequences of all of this confusion and chaos and deliberate dumbing down of the populace and all of this, the inability to recognize propaganda, to recognize the real purpose of the political system in the United States, this is something that I feel like could be our entry point to real change. But it's a difficult one. It's a very, very difficult one because the indoctrination is so incredibly intense. For example, I don't know if some of you guys might have seen this. I posted Jimmy Dore, I think is his name. I don't watch him, but I just happened to see this clip, and it was just so important that I felt like I had to repost it. It wasn't an endorsement of him. I don't know anything about him. But he was talking about Gaddafi. And, I remember when he was in power, and the propaganda was that he was this evil dictator and he was doing all these horrible things. And it turns out that in actuality, every single Libyan got a house, and he said his parents would remain in a tent. until every single citizen had a house. He didn't get it done before the U.S. assassinated him. So his parents were still living in a tent when he was assassinated. Everyone had free education, free health care. If they didn't offer a subject that you wanted to study, the government would pay for you to go to another country and go to school where you could learn what you wanted. And on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I mean, the list of things that he did for his people is incredible. And I haven't really checked into the political system, but I'm pretty sure it's communism if they are dividing the resources up amongst the population. And so, why did the U.S. assassinate him? According to Jimmy Dore, it was because he was going to make a new currency that would compete with the American dollar. I don't buy that. That does not, that just doesn't do it for me. I think that it was because he was setting an example that it's possible to create a system that actually benefits the people to the extent that everyone is flourishing. In the present moment, we have, anyone can Google this, happiest countries, best education, best healthcare. They all the top 10, or 70%, 7 out of 10, have more or less the same systems in place to make this all happen. Why is it not happening in the U.S.? Because the system they have serves the overlords. And I'm just using this as an example to show how thin this veil is. And I honestly believe that that's a lot of the reason that the propaganda machine is going off the deep end right now. The solutions that could be integrated to resolve so many of the sociological, cultural problems in the United States and elsewhere, there are proven systems that could be cut and pasted and applied. And that information is readily available to anyone that it occurs to think about it and look for it. Part of the issue, is that people have been conditioned to be triggered by certain words. This is the enemy, socialism, communism. All of these things are the absolute evils of the political arena. So as soon as there's any indication that that's what we're talking about, people are just not hearing it. They will rabidly defend the ability or the right of their overlords to stand on their throat. They're reaching up and tying their shoelaces for them and thanking them for it. So it's a tightrope walk, because the bullet point of this presentation is that crisis and opportunity are in perfect homeostasis in this situation. The magician has the inertia of the universe to assist him. So it's a roll of the dice to an extent, I think, at this point. Although positivity carries more charge, I think, than chaos and negativity. So on the one hand, we have this conditioned populace that has been driven over the edge of madness. And they are deaf to wisdom, to the solutions. At the same time, the answers are more readily available. We have more assets and tools. We have better minds. than we have ever had before. There is more potential in this moment than there has ever been. I don't know if I should say in human history, but definitely in the last, this epoch or whatever. And it is counterbalanced with an equal existential threat. My suspicion is that the answer is not preaching. The answer is not persuading. The answer is for those of us that have achieved clarity to set an example by creating real changes within ourselves, creating communities around this, and proving your success is your proof. Through our actions and our intentions, we might set an example that will compel people to follow. Or, better yet, to stop following and discover their own sovereignty and live in accordance with it. Truth is self-substantiating, and that is one of our aces in the hole. I was talking in my secret stream for patrons earlier tonight, so my apologies to those patrons that might be watching that are oh, by the way, thank you, Brandon, for becoming a patron. And I don't know if I said this already or not, but I am... Oh, there's Brandon. That's crazy. I just thanked him for becoming a patron, and pops up in the chat. Where was I at with this, though? Man, it was... Oh, yeah. I was talking about how, similar to Libya, right? The Grateful Dead inspired me when I was a lot younger in a lot of ways. But one of the most important things that I learned from them is that they put their purpose, I talk a lot about true will and how crisis of purpose is one of the main facets of our existence right now that is allowing, it sets people up for exploitation and to be led and exploited. And so that's the first thing. The music was first. If somebody wanted to buy a new house or something and there was something that needed to be done with the sound system, that got priority. And then every single person in the organization was allowed to vote at board meetings, even the janitor. And they paid their roadies $250,000 a year when Aerosmith, for example, was paying them $9 an hour. And so the consequence of this was that they grew very, very slowly compared to a lot of other bands. But the network of family and the attitude of treating the entire organism with equal importance allowed them to become the largest touring act in the world without any radio hits. And they are still filling stadiums in 2024 with only 2 original members, and they're in their 80s. And that is a very, very powerful thing to understand, that the prioritization of the collective is self-serving. And that is really the core shift that we have to make in our mentality if we're going to survive. And, this channel fundamentally isn't about plant medicine. It's not about the occult. It's not about political commentary. All of those things are tributaries. Things that contribute to a certain type of understanding that I call illumination. And one of the consequences of illumination, one of the things that people realize without fail, ubiquitously, as far as I can tell, is that we are one consciousness experiencing an illusory single vantage point. You know, one soul divided that union may come. And the thing about this type of illumination is that it's not doctrinal. It's not about following the 10 Commandments that are in a book or political allegiance to some sort of platform. It is direct experience. It's gnosis. And even for a self-serving narcissistic type, if you have experienced, you haven't just read in a book, it's not that someone told you, you have experienced unity consciousness. You know that before the whole end of time, you will have experienced everything from every possible point of view. So if you make someone suffer, it's not figurative, it's not allegorical. You are literally inflicting that damage upon yourself. So this type of illumination from these experiences can even bring the self-serving narcissist into homeostasis with a community. And this is the time. We have the tools, we have the wisdom of our ancestors, we have the mistakes of history. You know, we watched what happened with the hippies and the boomers. We have far more information and experience. You know, a lot of us are connected to shamans in the jungle. And we also have access to Buddhist meditation techniques. And we have the ability to educate ourselves in the sciences and philosophies. And we have plant medicines and other catalysts that we can use. And when these things are applied in the right way with the right intention, the kind of changes that I described that result in this illuminated person are almost inevitable. And even when the transformation is not complete in a person, the application of some combinations of the things that I described has some effect in that direction. So we just have to stay the course with conviction and confidence and determination and unity. Because this really is, I think everyone knows it, this is the tipping point. It is. And we are not doomed. But salvation is not guaranteed either. So, you know, when I look out at the sea of madness and the threat of World War III and all of the uncertainties, you know, for a good long while, it was getting to me. You know, I was discouraged, becoming cynical, even feeling almost like I was insincere because I get online and I talk about these things and encourage people, but to a large extent, I felt like we were already defeated, you know, at least a part of me. But a tiny shift in perspective can make all the difference in the world. And when I reminded myself that pressure from black, dead carbon, you know, coal crushing to make a diamond all of this chaostrophe is actually fuel that we could not achieve, lift, without it. And so it absolutely serves a purpose. And at some point, I just decided I am not going to let this discourage me. In fact, it's inspiration, and it is almost an assurance that we have the catalyst being the thing that we have to fight against. Everything in the universe is a process of transmutation, right? Light becomes matter. Matter eventually returns to the light. Everything in the universe is a transmutation, and we are sort of blessed to be conscious and have the opportunity to take part in transforming the lead of the darkness and the shadow into the gold of higher consciousness and divine sovereignty and liberation. It is a choice. But under these circumstances, where the pressure is so tremendous and the stakes are so high, right? Benefit is commensurate not only with effort, but with risk in a lot of cases. So while it's true that all of this madness, if you walk with wisdom wisely, can be constrained as a magician constrains the demon of lust or the demon of greed into productive ambition. While that is true, it's also true that in a moment like this, it's like surfing with sharks or, anything. It requires total focus at all times in order to navigate this effectively. And we all have the responsibility to ourselves, to future generations, to our communities. If we have heard these words, if we have heard the call, we have no excuse but to give it our absolute dedication and determination. Otherwise, you might as well just go join a flat earth cult. Somebody just asked if I perform the LBRP. Not as often as I used to, and no, I don't wear robes. I've never really bought into the whole necessity for costumes. But I actually just the other day committed to starting to engage in these practices regularly again, partly because of what I'm talking about here. And for anyone out there that doesn't know what the LBRP is, even if you're not a person that is predisposed to practicing magic, just as a very sophisticated technique of meditation, the LBRP, I think, is indispensable to anyone because it allows you first to compress information, right? Because you have elements, directions, and archangels that all represent different things that are related. And then you have the 4 directions. And so just a brief explanation. You are reminding yourself, clarifying your mission, and creating your universe consciously every morning. And then the middle pillar actually is similar, but you're visualizing a white light, bringing it to the throat to regulate your speech with the divine intelligence, and then your heart to regulate emotions, your crotch for creativity and sexuality, and down to your feet to regulate your steps. And so you go through this process of invoking these energies in the morning, and then you do it again at night to banish the things that you have picked up that don't serve you throughout the day. And it is a tremendously powerful way to maintain your focus and your clarity and your sense of self and miraculous things start to happen. Oftentimes people's lives fall apart once they get good at it. And it's that, people say, well, that's what you get for messing with magic. No. All of these things, the relationship and the job and all this stuff that didn't serve you, you have banished them. You have destroyed the structure that you were trapped in order to give yourself space to live in accordance with your truest, highest will, So, tremendously useful practice. I don't know why I put my camera in front of the damn chat. Well, that's strange. Someone asked if I used to play with DSO. I didn't used to play with them regularly, but I did play with them once. And Donna Jean Godchild, the original, one of the original members, not original members of the Grateful Dead, but a member of the original Grateful Dead was in the audience, which was incredibly nerve-wracking. But it's actually kind of an interesting story. It's not really related to anything we're talking about, but speaking of manifesting your will, I had seen Dark Star Orchestra 5 times, and they never played the song Dark Star. And after the last 2 or 3 times I saw them, I thought every time, why do they call themselves Dark Star, but they never play Dark Star? And so fast forward 5 years later, I guess, I don't know why, but I mentioned to my wife, I wish Dark Star Orchestra would have a school where they would teach you how to play this music, authentically. And about a week after that, my wife handed me her phone, and there was a ad for Dark Star Orchestra High School. They'd never done it before and have never done it again. It was only a week after I said this out loud. And when I was going to go play live with them, I was talking to the Bob Weir guy, who actually, his name is also Robert, and I said, what should we play? Scarlet Begonias or something? He goes, no, Dark Star. How about Dark Star? And if you had told me the first time I saw that band, just totally in awe and, or any of the times I had left the show thinking, when will I ever hear that I would actually be on stage with them with Donna in the front row, that I would, be part of it. It was just completely mind-blowing. But yeah, that's what happened there. I did not play with them regularly, but definitely. And it was like driving a Lamborghini. They are so telepathic. And I would play something and it would ripple through the rhythm section, and I would have an idea, and then they would be there when it was nuts, man. Really extraordinary. I also did play with Jay Lane, the last band that I was in before I left the United States, and he's now in Dead and Company, which is a crazy thing to see. So do we have anything else on this subject? I don't know. Have I asked you guys to hit the like button, share, subscribe, and consider becoming a patron? I am demonetized and get no support from YouTube, so we really appreciate support. There are also options to make one-time contributions in the chat, and it's very helpful. Helps me to justify sitting here for hours. And yeah, so if anyone has questions or subjects that they would like me to riff on, back to the conspiracy theory thing for a second. They really are crafty, these overlords. This is something that I think people have a hard time, and it sounds condescending for me to say this, and luckily for all of us, I don't give a shit. But people project, they're only able to understand things within the limitations that are imposed on them by their intellect and their life experience. You know, a lot of the inability to perceive what's happening in the political arena is designed to play off of this fact, right? They don't think like these people. Therefore, they interpret what they see based on how they think people act and think. They're not able to imagine being an elite and, you know, they're not thinking these guys have access to the NSA, CIA, all of the Ivy League institutions, think tanks. You know, they can hire geniuses. They consolidate all this information and feed it to them in condensed, you know, if they did consider that, to believe that all of the bullshit happening, you know, on the grand stage, culturally, politically, is actually the result of these bumbling president clowns. You know, that's really the only purpose of presidents in the United States. That's why they're always these asinine, ridiculous jokes. The fact that it's not obvious to people that has to be deliberate. When, you know, the DNC, tons of money, couldn't be more connected. They could have Andrew Yang at one point and Tulsi Gabbard, who I no longer like. But you know what I mean? They could have highly intelligent, forward-thinking, attractive, fit, smart, fair, reasonable, you know, like James Bond, modern-day James Bond. And instead, they give you Trump and Harris and Biden, and it's deliberate because it is consistent with the expectations of the populace. You know, that it's just inefficiency. They're just kind of out of touch, maybe a little corrupt, but they don't think about how little sense that actually makes and how obviously ridiculous it is. They will not let you go fishing without a license. They will not let you make medical decisions for yourself. You really think they're going to let you choose presidents? That these overlords and elites are going to put their fortunes, the empire that they and their ancestors have built, their destiny, in the hands of Walmart shoppers? Who could believe that is real? How? What kind of mental gymnastics, you know, that people do to achieve that? I had some other point that I was going to make that has escaped me yet again. Damn it. Yeah, Charlie said we need to get me monetized, but I don't think that. I mean, I've been banned from AdSense for life, so this channel can never be monetized. I'd have to start over from scratch. Maybe it would blow up if it was monetized because they definitely deprioritize channels that don't make money. Yeah. All right. So where was I going with this whole? Yeah, I don't know. Good enough, you guys. It's getting late. I'll give you a couple of minutes to put any topics or questions in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off for the night. Oh, what about UFOs and UAPs? That's a really interesting question. I personally have had experiences that are very difficult to dismiss. But, you know, we have a tremendous number of satellites, you know, 6,000 satellites or something in the sky. We have amateurs with telescopes all over the place. Most of the video that exists could easily be experimental, you know, top secret craft. it's not really something that we can answer until there are aliens, like, standing right next to us that we can actually poke with a stick and make sure they're solid. Do I have any more? Yeah, although one thing I can offer, I guess, kind of interesting, could be a coincidence, I suppose. But I once ate a burrito full of mushrooms, and I found myself on a spaceship with these aliens in business suits, and they were basically telling me that more advanced beings it's not like law, where you answer to a government, or it's more like there's a standard of conduct that comes with being illuminated, I guess. And so they don't intervene unless a planet, not the humanity, but the planet itself, is in danger of destruction. Because all of the planets and stars are sort of like cells or organs in a larger being. And, it's important that they remain alive. And so they told me, you're worried about all this stuff, but at the last minute, when destruction is imminent, we'll come and intervene. And we have all this disclosure happening and a lot of, possible evidence, these objects that hit the water at insane speeds and come up again without having slowed down, that sort of stuff. The increase in this, as we're about to completely destroy ourselves, makes that experience, potentially interesting to me. He's asking if there's been any contact with aliens in the jungle. Only in the form of like peanut. What is that thing? Like a peanut fly or something? It looks like an alligator, but it has wings. So yeah, alien creatures for sure, but no. Actual aliens. He says you must be telepathic. Well, we are all telepathic, I think, to some extent. It's one of those things where the repeatability test, it fails. In my experience, precognitions and telepathy, these kind of things happen intermittently. There's never been a person, as far as I can tell, that has been able to just do it on command at any time. But we all know that it happens from time to time. So, my experience of this is that, I think I was probably already more predisposed to picking up a broader wavelength of bandwidth of the consciousness spectrum. But psychedelics definitely assist in that and make it more consistent, although it's still not like a permanent attribute. Maybe that can be developed eventually. But, that whole theory of bringing down the filtration system in our nervous system and then being more receptive to information in the ether, that it's facts. All right, checking in with the other chat real quick and see if we have any questions. Or is the thumbprint? Yeah, so Paul's asking if the thumbprint LSD initiation ritual with the Grateful Dead family is true, and yes, it is true. The reason is that if you're a cop and you stick your thumb in that LSD and then lick it, crystal LSD, you're going to tell on yourself. There's no way that any cop is making it past that. And what they would do, the Grateful Dead merchandise company used to make these giant belt buckles, big metal belt buckles. And there's a line in a Grateful Dead song that said, they'll steal your face right off your head. And so these belt buckles oftentimes had a steely on them, a steal your face symbol. And if you were caught with a phone doing a deal with the GDF, they would take the belt off and steal your face with the buckle. So yes, that rumor is true. All right, guys, I've been talking for an hour, so I guess I'm going to check out. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please remember to walk with knowledge wisely. You know, we have to really spend a lot of time developing our mindfulness and analyzing our behavior. Get good at psychoanalysis. You know, be very careful what you repeat. We don't want to discredit ourselves at all. You know what I mean? We have to make sure that we are shining the light in the places where people are unable or unwilling to look, but we have to make sure it's not a false light, and that the things that we uncover there, we're able to integrate and aptly describe and, relate to them in the proper way to rise above all the dirt and grime, add the right spice at the right time. So, I hope that there has been something of use and inspiration to each and every one of you tonight. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. And if you would like to come to an event in November or May, shoot me an email, which is in the description. And I'll see you all again Wednesday.